So Argaty, it's a 1400 acre estate outside of Dunblane, and we're a beef and sheep farm, but we also run a lot of conservation on the place. So we're home to the Argaty Red Kite project, which is a feeding station. We feed the birds each day, people come and see them and learn a little bit about their story and their history. We've got a red squirrel hide, we do various other wildlife tours and talks as well. I can't now remember what it was like not to have kites here. They arrived when I was 12 going on 13, but I can't really kind of imagine, anything different to it. A really nice thing is that my daughter, she's been able to identify a red kite for as long as she could put a name to anything, she'd be able to. I remember once we were up in Inverness visiting her granny up there, and a kite came flying over the house there, and she must have only been about 2 years old. And she pointed up and said red kite, and she was right, and that was a nice thing, nice to kind of, for them to be that much a part of the family, I guess. Growing up, the idea that we would one day have a red squirrel hide here would have been pretty laughable. I think in 18 years before going away to university, I remember seeing red squirrels twice on the place, and it was a total kind of heart-stopping kind of thing. But yeah, our old head ranger, Mike, he enlisted us in the grey squirrel culling scheme. So we were trapping and culling grey squirrels. Pretty grim thing, but it's as humane as possible. It's a live trap, and you catch them and shoot them. And the red squirrels, they just started to slowly kind of gain a foothold again in the area. So we're kind of, where we're located is right on the boundary between the Highland red population and the lowland greys. I suppose the big thing is the greys. There's no way that they can coexist with the grey squirrels, either because the greys will take all the food, they're a much more adaptable feeder, bigger and more aggressive, but they also, the squirrel pox, the virus that they carry that they're immune to, is fatal to reds, and that's been found as close as Pleen near Stirling, so that's frighteningly close to here. So that's the big thing, is trying to keep the greys out, and if you've got enough habitat for reds, that should be okay. But we try just to kind of boost the numbers, because the reds are so recently back into the area. We feed them in various different spots around the farm, and we've also kind of fenced off bits of roadside where they've been hit by cars and things, just to stop them running all the way out, and put up rope bridges, squirrel nest boxes, all those sorts of things. I think what I like about the squirrels is that they're incredibly kind of human, even though they look like these little aliens, so they do all these things, like they run around, they fight, they scold each other, all these things. I like that they're frantic as well, so they're kind of always kind of on the move and hyper. Yeah, generally I think everyone loves a squirrel, don't they, and I think it just feels an incredible kind of privilege to be able to see them all the time. They're quite cute wee things, really, aren't they? So it should really be a good habitat for them in terms of hunting. It's all kind of wide open, rough pasture up there, lots of big kind of rushy fields, which should be really good for vole numbers. There's also a lot of new plantation up there, which again, is a good hunting ground for them. What's possibly lacking, which is kind of the case for kestrels really across Britain, is the old mature trees. There's still some remnants of the old Caledonian pine woods up there, but it's quite scattered now. So we've been trying to address that a bit by putting up nest boxes to replicate the old kind of hollows that you'd find in old trees, you know, and create a wee bit of a nesting habitat for them. So far, we've had one box that's been successful. It's probably a bit early to kind of draw judgments on how successful the thing will be. Hopefully, you know, in kind of 5 years' time or something, we'll have a lot more, because there certainly are kestrels about. It's maybe just a bit of a case of them having time to find the nest sites. We probably see it all in terms of the weather. You know, sometimes it's glorious having an all year round project, and sometimes it's pretty grim, as you can imagine. But yeah, I mean, the one thing that is really good about it is, I suppose, you really get to know the, particularly the kites and the squirrels. You really get to know how they are in each different season, and you know, all the different behaviours you'll see in different weather. So I guess you get this kind of appreciation because you're kind of forced to be out in it. You know, you do see the full kind of all the personality, I guess, you know, and how the different weathers and different seasons affects them. So hopefully it makes us better guides for it, even if sometimes it's a bit unpleasant. Yeah, I mean, I guess springtime always does come as a bit of a relief, really. You know, spring and summertime are always nice. I mean, winter's quite hard in the countryside, you know. I know a lot of people love it for photography and the colours and all that sort of thing. And certainly the kites are spectacular in the really harsh weather because you get the highest numbers, but it does take a long time to pass, and it's kind of a relief when you start to see the springtime coming in, you know, a bit of sunshine, and be able to work outdoors a bit more again and stuff. We want to try and use the areas that are kind of unproductive for agriculture to kind of put in more habitat, or let habitat just kind of redevelop on its own accord, and see what comes to it, really. You know, it's I've spent quite a lot of time these past 2 years since I started doing the conservation stuff, took over as kind of running the kite project. I've spent a lot of time, I guess, trying to tell nature what to do in a way, you know, and it kind of makes me think maybe, you know, it is too top down. You're too much trying to manage nature, and instead you should just be kind of creating a space for it, letting it do what it wants, you know. So I think that'll be the plan, try and do that, and hopefully, you know, people kind of like us, like what we're doing, and want to come and see the place.